Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX Eurozone, and here are the top headlines. Russia says that it is ready to resume peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul, its first offer in months. Moscow claims the ball is now in Ukraine's court, while Kiev has accused Russia of lacking seriousness about ending the more than 4-year war. In Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region, police and aid workers have evacuated 22 residents from the frontline town of Uliapoe as fighting intensifies and Russian forces push deeper amid poor weather conditions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that the situation in Pokrovsk remains difficult with bad weather favoring Russian attacks. He's warned that Moscow is increasing assaults in the southeastern Zaporizhzhia region. Ukraine has suspended Justice Minister German Galushenko amid a major energy corruption investigation. Authorities have charged 7 officials in a $100 million kickback scheme. The scandal erupts as Ukrainians face power outages. British Health Minister Wes Streeting has denied plotting against Prime Minister Keir Starmer, calling reports categorically untrue. Starmer's allies, meanwhile, have vowed that he will fight any attempts to ensure leadership change. Spanish King Philip VI and Chinese President Xi Jinping have signed agreements on language exchanges and other areas as both sides have vowed to strengthen their cooperation. Turkey's defense ministry has stated that 20 soldiers were killed in the crash of a military aircraft in Georgia as inspectors continue to search for clues on what caused the NATO member's cargo plane to go down. Iceland has designated the potential collapse of a major Atlantic Ocean current system as a national security concern and an existential threat, enabling its government to strategize for worst-case scenarios. Alright viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Russia now says that it is ready to resume peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul. This is the first such offer it has made in months. Now, according to Russian state media, a foreign ministry official has confirmed that Moscow's delegation is now prepared to return to negotiations, stating that the ball is in Ukraine's court. No direct talks have taken place since the 23rd of July, when a short round of discussions in Turkey ended without any sort of progress. Kiev, meanwhile, has rejected Moscow's claim that it is blocking peace efforts, insisting that the Kremlin is not serious about ending the war, which is now entering its 4th year. This development comes as Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has warned that the prospect of war between Europe and Russia is becoming increasingly apparent, citing comments from France's top military chief urging readiness for a possible confrontation within 3 to 4 years. This is, of course, the latest that we are tracking on the broadcast. We've seen several attempts even by the Americans so far. Earlier, there was a summit that took place between Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. There was a meeting that was supposed to be held in Budapest as well. Somehow, it did not materialize after Kremlin had sent a memo to Washington. In the meantime, there were calls, when murmurs of this particular meeting were going around, that Ukraine should be brought to the negotiating table, and now it seems that Russia is extending an olive branch, stating that it is ready to resume peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, Fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. A major statement coming in. Russia says that it is ready to return to the negotiating table in Istanbul with Ukraine, stating that the ball is in Ukraine's court now. Ukraine has, of course, hit back, stating that it's the Russians on the other side who are not serious about any sort of conversation. Where do you see this headed to next? Russia is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, now extending some sort of an olive branch. And secondly, I also wanted to understand what could have prompted Moscow to do so.
Russia tried to exchange negotiation because United States will be serious to impose more strong sanctions against Russia. That could happen if Russia does not show enough level of the cooperative attitude towards the United States. So that's why they are thinking how to extend the negotiation. And in this case, one of the tactics, they choose to resume the negotiation with Ukraine. But the real message Russia is sending is not directly to the Ukraine. This is a message to the United States, I believe. But anyway, the view from the situation, indeed, there is no agreement something between Russia and Ukraine because Russia side want to continue war and Ukraine side want to take back territory Russia took from them. So that's why indeed it is very difficult to end. Indeed, Russia do not have the will to end the war because even if the small, they are taking the territory. And indeed, continuing a war means that still Russia can say that we are winning, even if the grand situation is nearly stalemated.
Indeed, and there's been another interesting comment that has come forth this time from Alexander Vučić, Serbian president. He's warned of a prospect that the war between Russia and Europe could also materialize in the future. We have seen NATO, and we've discussed this many times as well, NATO take a very measured response as far as Operation Eastern Sentry is concerned. It's not directly trying to provocate Russia and vice versa as well. In this context of the remarks that have been made by the Serbian president, is there a possibility of the war protracting even further if it drags on?
If Russia provokes other European country, and this means other is not include Ukraine, other European countries too much, of course it could happen. But at the same time, the view from Russia, Russia's resources is limited. So if Russia want to continue the war in Ukraine, Russia cannot use cannot open the other front line in other place, I think. So that's why the drone they sent, fighter jets they sent, and violate territorial area of the NATO belong countries. That such kind of provocation is a little bit Russia do not want to escalate. This is just a provocation, not start war. That is maybe borderline or gray zones Russia is seeking. Clear war is not Russia's interest in other region, I believe. But anyway, Russia should be careful because they are provoking. There is enough reason for NATO to retaliate in this case.
Absolutely, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some further updates. This is, of course, regarding what's taking place on the front lines. We're learning that in Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region, police and aid workers have evacuated 22 residents from the frontline town of Huliapole as fighting intensifies and Russian forces push deeper amid poor weather conditions. Now, Ukraine's top commander, Oleksandr Syrsky, has stated that the situation has significantly worsened near Oleksandrivka and Huliapole, with troops now engaged in exhausting battles for control of nearby villages. Most evacuees were elderly civilians, as drones and shelling made rescue efforts increasingly dangerous. And officials say only 500 residents remain in Huliapole, which is down from 15,000 before the war, and no children are left in this particular town. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military says that it has carried out a drone strike on Russia's Stavronensky energy plant in Stavropol Krai, deep inside Russian territory. Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Sata Runagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute. These evacuations come at a very interesting time because we do know what the Russians have been doing so far, and it's quite the interesting strategy that they've adopted right now in this period of the war. They're conducting pincer attacks, sending teams of about 2 to 3 or 4 to 5 of their soldiers in order to encircle these towns and cities and thereby gain more area. How do you see this panning out, especially in the winter when the ground will be hard?
Yes, winter ground looks hard, but compared with the mud season, maybe winter relatively better, because you can imagine when the tank run, the mud is make the tanks slow speed. But flat, icy the road means that the tank can move swiftly. So that's why the winter is not completely bad compared with the more worse terrain. So that's what. So there is a possibility Russia can advance some more. But anyway, the Ukraine defense capability is strong. So that's why even if Russia advance some part, this is a small area anyway. And this is not meaning the total defense line of Ukraine will be collapsed. So in this ground situation, strategically this is still made. Tactically, yes, move a little, but strategically not move, even if a small move has happened.
Absolutely, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time and sharing your perspective with our viewers. On that note, we're shifting focus to more developments coming in. We're now learning that Ukraine's government has suspended Justice Minister German Galushchenko amid an investigation into corruption in the energy sector. Ukrainian authorities have charged 7 individuals in relation to an alleged $100 million kickback scheme involving senior energy officials that had caused public anger and focused attention on Kyiv's battle against corruption. Galushchenko, who had previously served as energy minister, was the subject of investigative actions. And accusations of kickbacks in the energy sector are particularly sensitive with the broader public, as the population is facing lengthy daily blackouts across much of the country, even before cold winter temperatures set in, as it fends off a massive Russian attacks on its infrastructure. This is the latest that we are tracking from Ukraine at this point of time. We're learning that their energy minister, I beg your pardon, former energy minister and current justice minister German Galushchenko has now been suspended. This has come amidst an investigation into corruption in the energy sector. Ukrainian authorities, meanwhile, have charged 7 individuals in relation to an alleged $100 million kickback scheme involving senior energy officials. This has obviously caused a lot of public anger and comes amidst the time when the public is facing daily blackouts across much of the country. The cold winter temperatures are going to set in very, very soon, but these blackouts have primarily been occurring because of a Russian barrage of strikes that have taken place on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. We've seen how strikes have in fact left nearly 800,000 people in Kiev without electricity for quite a while as well. Galushchenko, of course, has been the subject of investigative actions for quite a while now. These are the latest reports that are coming in this particular case. Justice Minister has been suspended. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Keith Vaz, a former minister from the United Kingdom. He's joining us from London. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. We've, of course, been tracking these developments very, very closely. We do know that the public in Ukraine has been facing a lot of hardship due to these blackouts, due to the war as well. I want to understand from you, in what ways might the corruption, the $100 million kickback scheme in the energy sector, sort of exacerbate the ongoing energy shortages, blackout crisis that have been faced by the ordinary civilians on the ground?
Well, obviously, it is a cause for grave concern as to what is happening. Energy is essential for the people of Ukraine, especially at this particular time. And anything that disrupts the flow or causes concern about the flow is something that people are going to be very concerned about. So I would imagine we would want the president to get a grip of what is happening. This is President Zelensky, to make sure that something constructive happens to alleviate the suffering of these people, which must be very damaging for them.
Absolutely, and we've also learned that, in fact, an extraordinary session of the government was held in order to suspend German Galushenko from his post as Justice Minister. What sort of message is then Zelensky trying to send to the Ukrainian public at large, which has been angered by this corruption, a scheme that has been taking place for quite a while now?
Well, I think what he's trying to show is that he is being tough on those who are accused of corruption. This is an issue that has been dogging Ukraine since the start of the war, indeed even before it. That is that there's a lot of aid that is going to the country, but where does it end up? So you've got some very fanciful suggestions, some of which are true, some are not true. So I think what he's trying to do is show his ability to be decisive, try to making sure that something positive comes out of this and that he's got a grip of the situation. So I'm not surprised he's acted in this particular way, and I would imagine that he will continue to be vigilant. But we're in a war situation. So from that point of view, I don't think that there is going to be much more that we can do about it.
Absolutely, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking further developments, this time from the United Kingdom. We're now learning that British Health Secretary Wes Streeting has denied claims of a leadership challenge against Prime Minister Keir Starmer. This follows reports citing Starmer's allies who feared a plot after the upcoming budget. Streeting, along with Interior Minister Shabana Mahmood, were reportedly named as possible replacements. However, Streeting has firmly rejected the speculation, stating that the briefing was categorically untrue and has reaffirmed his support for Starmer. Despite leading Labour to a historic election victory in 2024, there have been some ratings that have been published regarding Starmer's approval, which showcase that these have dropped, with the party now trailing behind Nigel Farage's Reform UK in the polls. Now, the Labour Party is bracing for the upcoming budget, which will be presented on the 26th of November, with tax increases expected to address a growing fiscal deficit. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Keith Waz. We, of course, see a lot of rumours, a lot of speculations come out during the budget season, of course. It's not the first time this has taken place. But with regards to the optics of internal unity, of cohesion with the Labour Party, how crucial do you think is Wes Streeting now reaffirming his support for Keir Starmer?
Well, not a surprise. Let's just look at the facts. First of all, this government's been in power for 18 months. Secondly, Keir Starmer is at the moment, according to the opinion polls, one of the least popular, if not the most unpopular prime minister in history. He's even lower than Rishi Sunak or Boris Johnson when they were in power. So that's pretty low. And the third point is people are very worried and anxious about the rise of reform to the right and the Green Party to the left. And this is even before Jeremy Corbyn has formed his party. So Labour is being diced up from having that great coalition. I'm not going to vote Tory because I think they're totally incompetent, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, I have to vote Labour, to a situation where you've now got 3 or 4 parties on the centre-left who will slice up Labour's votes. Wes Streeting could not possibly have said, I don't like Keir Starmer, I'm going to stand against him, because he would have been sacked. So he would have been out of work this morning. So I'm not sure why everyone thinks this is a surprise. But of course, leadership candidates never say it themselves, because he who wields the knife never wears the crown. Wes is definitely one of the successors. He's young, ambitious. He's done good work on the NHS, meaning good work, meaning he's kept it out of the headlines, to be honest. I remember once Tony Blair saying to me, I said, well, you know, I'm not going to be in the newspapers all the time when you appoint me Minister for Europe. And he said, good, I don't want you in the newspapers all the time. I want you to be doing your job. And the worst thing for the other people who have been suggested as possible candidates is as soon as you're named as a potential prime ministerial candidate, all the knives are out. You have to be watching the people who do not declare and are not mentioned. So this is going to be quite a time. I like Keir Starmer. I think he's a good guy, and he's just been dealt a very bad hand by the Conservative government, what they left behind, but also by the circumstances of especially migration and the cost of living crisis, which is ongoing. But it's worth looking at the two results that maybe point the way for the future. The result of the election of a democratic socialist as the mayor of New York, the Mandami election, and secondly, the election of an independent as president of Ireland. As world leaders, they're obviously not world leaders. These are significant positions because it shows for the first time people are bucking the trend of always supporting the major parties. I think what we're seeing is the lives of the major parties being brought into question. Nobody wants to vote for them. They want to vote for fringe candidates or other parties. That's what they'd like to do. So I think that this is where we're going to go in the future. But Keir Starmer is not going to sleep easily in his bed tonight. The budget's on the 26th of November, which just happens to be my birthday, by the way. So I'm not sure whether they're going to announce that a new coin has been going to be created in my name. But on my birthday, let's hope we don't get any bad news, which is more taxes and other issues of that kind. So it's going to be a tough 3 years for Keir Starmer. These stories are going to re-emerge on NewsX World many, many times in the future. But at the end of the day, it takes 81 Labour MPs to say, we've had enough. And they might want to keep that till the end.
Indeed, you've spoken about the possibility of the taxes increasing and also of what Starmer has been handed. We do know that the fiscal deficit is quite significant. It continues to grow. How might these tax increases, in your assessment, sort of impact the public perception of the Labour government, especially of Keir Starmer, amongst those who are working, amongst the middle class in the UK?
Well, it's going to be very bad, and it's going to cause a lot of concern. And, you've already driven out a lot of people. I've just come back from a tour of the Far East. I was in India. The pound was reaching 122 rupees. By the time I left, it was one for 115 rupees. So the pound's doing quite well, the rupee is doing quite badly, and it must be hard. Good for exporting of Indian goods, but easier for a tourist visiting India. And then I went to Dubai, where I saw a large number of Indian origin people who'd left the UK because of the taxes and were settling in Dubai. They were trying to get me to move there. They were trying to get me to move there. They tried to say they don't pay tax. They've got, wonderful facilities. Everything is great in Dubai, the great shining city on the hill. It is a lovely place, but not somewhere I'd like to visit. But it's going to cause hardship for people. It's going to squeeze the middle class. If you keep squeezing the middle class, it's going to be a problem for governments in the future. My aspiration, everybody should be in a job. Everyone should have the capacity to develop their skills. The prosperity of the nation should come first. We've seen none of that talk coming from the Labour government. And we saw a lot of rhetoric from the Conservatives, but nothing practical.
All right, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, of putting all of that which is taking place in the UK into context for our viewers. Meanwhile, we're tracking some breaking updates, this time coming in from Libya. We're learning that the United Nations has confirmed that 42 migrants are presumed dead following a tragic shipwreck off the coast of Libya. The rubber boat, which had been adrift for 6 days, capsized, leaving only 7 survivors. The victims include 29 from Sudan, 8 from Somalia, 3 from Cameroon, and 2 from Nigeria. The survivors, 4 from Sudan, 2 from Nigeria, and 1 from Cameroon, were rescued after being stranded at sea. The International Organization for Migration has expressed deep concern regarding this tragedy. More news coming in, this time from Iceland. Iceland has now designated the potential collapse of a major Atlantic Ocean current system as a national security concern and an existential threat. The Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, or AMOC, currently brings warm water from the tropics northward towards the Arctic, and the flow of warm water helps keep Europe's winters mild. Iceland says that if emissions are not cut, AMOC will collapse completely. Listen in to what a parliamentarian had to say.
If we do not reduce or cut emissions, then that means that this system of currents, AMOC, will collapse completely. And that will mean that we do no longer get the warm currents of ocean around the country. And it will mean that it will be very cold, and it will have a existential threat to Iceland. Basically, it's a big word to say, but this is a reality that we are trying to get our head around now, and that's the reason why Iceland Security Council was informed by the government.
Now, viewers, according to reports, a potential collapse of AMOC could trigger a modern-day ice age, with winter temperatures across northern Europe plummeting to new cold extremes, bringing far more snow and ice. The AMOC has collapsed in the past before. The last ice age ended about 12,000 years ago. Meanwhile, in Paris, former Congolese rebel leader Roger Lumbala has gone on trial for crimes against humanity linked to atrocities committed during the Second Congo War, which occurred more than 20 years ago. Now, the 67-year-old, who once led the RCDN rebel faction, is accused of complicity in mass killings, torture, and other abuses between 1998 and 2003 in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. French prosecutors say that he played a key role in the conflict that left millions dead and is being tried under universal jurisdiction, allowing France to prosecute the world's worst crimes regardless of where they occurred. In other news, Spanish King Felipe VI and Chinese President Xi Jinping have now signed agreements on language exchanges and other areas, as both sides have vowed to strengthen their cooperation. Listen in to what the leaders had to say.
国王陛下曾多次访华，是中国人民的好朋友。西班牙王室为推动中西关系发展做出了突出贡献。
Se ha ido trazando una relación de confianza, una relación sólida, relaciones bilaterales de confianza mutua, bajo los principios de respeto y de prosperidad compartida.
This crucial visit comes as Spain, which is the fourth largest European economy, has now continued its courtship of China and Chinese investment, while the relationship with the United States is strained under US President Donald Trump. With that, viewers, due to paucity of time, it's a wrap on NewsX Eurozone. We will continue to track all of these updates very, very closely. In the meantime, we're dipping into a quick short break.
Thank you.